Hello there and welcome to another edition of the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnett. Good to have you with us on a Thursday afternoon. Hope you enjoyed the holiday yesterday, 4th of July. I know I did, even though Pete and I were talking about it before the show. We were in two separate locations, but boy, mosquitoes. Mosquitoes everywhere in this area. I guess it's all the rainfall over the last couple of weeks. But anyway, back to the grind today, back to work. One more day until the weekend, so glad to have you with us no matter where you are. If you'd like to join the show, 794-9001 is how you do that, 794-9001. We are brought to you by thesocialgambler.com, your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. Now, I've told you before, everything on The Social Gambler is completely free. They have loads of fresh, daily, updated content. We'll be going through some of the stuff they have on there a little later today, and new fresh content. That's right, now video podcasts of this show can be seen on thesocialgambler.com. So that's right, if you want to see, and I was telling Pete, I don't like the angle I'm shot from, little low. Looks like I have a double chin or something. Makes me look fatter than I am, even fatter than I am. So if you want to see why the ladies have always said I have a face for radio, you can check that out on thesocialgambler.com. See, Pete, are you putting podcasts of your show up? You doing that now?
I'm not.
Yeah,
no,
I'm
still too afraid to record myself.
Yeah, because of the stalking and things of that nature.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've got lots of stalkers.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. See, Pete, he has to avoid that because,
No, I do not look as good as I think I look. I'm just going to say that. When I look at some of the video recorded podcasts, now, before you say, oh, yeah, he's arrogant, he thinks he looks great. No.
At least he's got confidence, doesn't he?
No, I am not impressive on a webcam. I'll just say it like that. I'm not impressive on a webcam.
He's modest, ladies. I don't know. At least the webcam, it gets me from my bad side because it gets my double chin, but it gets Pete from a good side because, Pete, I have quite a forehead myself, but now Pete, that head, that hair, Pete's going Bruce Willis. That's right. The LeBron Kobe, Bruce Willis. Pete's taking that thing Bruce Willis. So for Pete, I think, the equivalent for me, the webcam's down there. For Pete, it should be mounted sort of above.
See, I would never let that happen.
The downward view.
I would never let that happen.
Anyway, plenty to talk about today. Not just Pete and I's shortcomings. 794-9001 if you want to get in. Lots of news in the sports world. Sort of news breaking an hour and a half ago. NFL Players Association suing the NFL on behalf of 3 of the 4 New Orleans Saints players who were involved in the bounty suspensions. Now, Jonathan Vilma is already suing the NFL and Roger Goodell separately. So Jonathan Vilma is left out of this particular lawsuit. But Will Smith, Anthony Hargrove, Scott Fujita, the union filing suit against the NFL on behalf of these 3 guys. And they're basically claiming unfairness. Blanket unfairness, type of thing we've talked about before on this show, how Roger Goodell is a judge, jury, and executioner. He's been extremely heavy-handed in his time as NFL commissioner. Exact language in the lawsuit, the Players Association called Commissioner Goodell, quote, incurably and evidently biased. Goodell, if you don't know, what you probably do, he handed down these punishments, and they were able to appeal. The players were able to appeal to him. Then it went to an arbitrator, and Goodell was one of the arbitrators, sat in on the arbitration proceedings. For that reason, even though the arbitrators found in favor of the NFL, the union believes they have a legitimate chance to get a fresh set of eyes on this thing. So this story is developing. It's not done yet. Remains to be seen if any of these guys will miss time this year. Seems like a lot of times when these suspensions are taken to court, they end up being postponed. We'll see what comes of it. One thing we can safely say is, Roger Goodell, among the players, you now have the union suing the NFL, he is not very popular. And you might not think that matters. You might say, well, he shouldn't be popular, He should be heavy-handed. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if it's healthy in any professional sports league to have animosity between the players who really make the game. The players make the game, the players and the teams. I'm not one of those guys, I'm not Tom Glavine here. I'm not saying without the players there is no sport. No, if every player in the NFL quit today, but the franchises remained and just had to find new players, it would hurt the league's popularity, no doubt, especially for a couple of years. But the league wouldn't be going anywhere. The NFL would still survive. You'd find new stars, et cetera, et cetera. But the players are more of the game than Roger Goodell. I mean, we watch the players. We're interested in the players. We don't care about Roger Goodell. And that's something that he either fails to grasp or just, doesn't care that we don't care. Because Goodell, and I've said it before, to me a commissioner should be similar to an official. You always hear, and I think it's true, but you always hear that a good official is not noticed. Good officiating, you don't want to notice the officials. You notice the game. You notice what's going on. It's bad officiating that you notice. It sticks out like a sore thumb. Bad officiating always becomes a story. When officials make themselves the story, that is never a good thing for the game or the sport. Same thing's true with commissioners. A good commissioner should be in the background, should watch the league thrive, similar to the way Paul Tagliabue was. The NFL experienced tremendous growth under Paul Tagliabue, who's, of course, Roger Goodell's predecessor. And Goodell really inherited the golden goose here. NFL was already the most popular sport in this country, far and away, when Goodell stepped in, and he was basically told not to screw it up. Keep in mind that the commissioner serves at the pleasure of the owners. The owners basically hire this guy to run the league. The owners are the one who owns the league. Roger Goodell does not own the league. He works for the owners and gets paid an exorbitant salary to do so. $18 to $20 million, reports at least $18 million a year Roger Goodell makes. I understand the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. However, is he worth his money? I mean, is anybody worth $18 million? I tell you what, you can give me about 1/5 of that, and I'll take a shot at it. But popularity of professional sports leagues is not something that's guaranteed forever. The NFL seems like, hey, right now it's bulletproof. Everybody, myself included, likes football and NFL football above all else. I mean, we talk about NFL football on this show nearly 365 days a year. Rarely does a day go by where there's not some football news. And that's because that's what most people are interested in hearing. It's what I'm interested in hearing. I mean, I like other sports too, but however, don't take it for granted. It's not going to be like that forever, necessarily. At one time, not too long ago, baseball was the most popular sport in this country. The 70s into the 80s. Starting in the mid-80s, baseball's popularity started to fizzle. The strike in the early 90s was a real shot to baseball's popularity. And since then, it's been playing catch-up to the NFL. And in some markets, the numbers bear it out, to the NBA. The NBA has surpassed Major League Baseball in popularity in a lot of this country. Now, coincidentally or not, I think maybe not, Major League Baseball's decline in popularity started right around the time Bud Selig took over as commissioner in 1987. So, the commissioner of a sport, he has a lot to say. I mean, most commissioners don't serve for 2, 3, 4 years. These are guys who preside over these sports for decades sometimes. And they can really shape what these various sports look like. And what is Goodell shaping the NFL into now? Let me ask you that. Because it's thriving now, still the golden goose, but there are storm clouds on the horizon. I'm not only talking about suits like the one today filed by the union, but the hundreds of suits, many of them consolidated now into one suit in federal court, the hundreds of suits by former players, now thousands of former players, suing the NFL, claiming they were not made properly aware of the dangers of concussions and head injuries while they were playing. Now, I've been outspoken about this subject. I do not think the players have any ground to I think the players are in the wrong here. I think this is the lady from McDonald's, or the lady who spills her McDonald's coffee on her, suing McDonald's because it's too hot. The definition of frivolous, to me, maybe not frivolous. It's hard to say frivolous when we're talking head injuries, but there are inherent, obvious risks associated with playing football, just like sports like boxing, MMA. And if you choose to participate in those sports, you understand, and you can't tell me you don't. I do not believe you. You're insulting my intelligence, retired NFL player, if you're expecting me to believe that you had no idea that, if you had instances where you blacked out or sustained concussions or whatever, or the game of football in general could lead to no long-term health consequences. Come on now. I don't buy it for a second. However, whether or not those suits have a valid basis or not, they're suits nonetheless. The NFL is getting bombarded now, sued by current players, sued by former players. And what are they doing the whole time? Well, in regards to these lawsuits, they're really backpedaling, changing rules every year, trying to increase player safety. The NFL is not a safe game. Change too many more of these rules. I mean, soon, the way it's going, soon. I'm not talking 20 years. I mean, soon. The rule that is now in place for quarterbacks, for contact to a quarterback's head, is going to be in place for every player. Brace yourselves, folks. Everybody who watches football has seen a ridiculous personal foul at some point over the last couple of years where a quarterback, somebody's hand just grazes a quarterback's head. Doesn't even knock him over. The quarterback seems not even notice. And the referee will throw the flag just for contact to a quarterback's head. Soon it's going to be that way for everybody. And soon, project that 10, 20 more years down the road, they're playing flag football. I'm talking literally flag football. The game of football as we know it could end. And I might be being over dramatic here. But I think Roger Goodell right now is leading the NFL down a path that could lead to a place that I sure hope it doesn't go. And that is an end to the game as we know it. I've said before, violence is part of the NFL. They have to embrace that. I compare the NFL to the city of Las Vegas. If you remember 10 or 15 years ago, Las Vegas had that family-friendly push. All the casinos built roller coasters. Vegas tried to sell themselves as a place, family vacation, families to have fun for all ages. Well, they experienced sort of a recession out there, and someone smartly changed, did a complete 180 in terms of marketing strategy. Now, what is the slogan for Las Vegas? What do you hear all the time? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I ask you, what is that implying? What is that implying? You know good and well what it's implying. You will do quote unquote bad things out in Vegas that you may not do elsewhere. What kind of bad things? Well, there's all kinds of things out there. There's gambling. There's clubs. There's parties that stay open all night. There is prostitution, which we don't have many places in this country. A lot of things that would fall under the umbrella of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So Vegas is, going back to its Sin City roots and once again selling itself as a place where bad things happen. You can be bad here. We won't tell anybody. And since then, in the last decade, there have been casinos going up left and right on the Vegas Strip. If you have not been to Las Vegas in the last 10 years, if you walk from one side of the Strip to New York, or from Mandalay Bay, New York, that area, down to the Wynn, you will not believe it. It does not look like the same place. That city center they've built now, right in the middle of everything. Of course, the Wynn's now expanded to include the Encore as well. City's growing again. The NFL needs to do the same thing. The NFL needs to take a stand here and say, hey, it's a violent sport. Play at your own risk. You don't want to play? Take up golf. Take up chess. take up the violin. You might get hurt doing this. To me, that's the type of attitude they have taken. It's not the type of attitude Roger Goodell is taking. Now, that might be a little off subject from what I started talking about, which was the lawsuit filed today by the NFL Players Association suing the NFL, but to me, this is the unrest amongst players, the dislike of Goodell amongst players is not good for the league. And the fact that Roger Goodell seems to not care about it, seems to give that grin kind of like, I'm the smartest guy in the room, I know what's going on, and hey, I'd probably grin that way too if they were paying me $18 million a year to be the commissioner. Keep smiling in that $3,000 suit, Roger Goodell. Anyway, didn't mean to get as deep into that as we did. The big sports news really of the day over the last 24 hours, ever since news broke last night that Steve Nash will now be a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers trading the Phoenix Suns 4 draft picks, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders. But keep in mind, those are the Lakers draft picks, so they're pretty good every year. So we're talking late first-round and late second-round draft picks, most likely, in exchange for Steve Nash. Been a lot of debate. You've probably heard some of it today, what exactly this does for the Lakers, and I think it improves them. But what I want to mention first is, the NBA, the season is now over. The beginning of a complete dead zone. NBA players are now, in various locations around the globe partying, because that's what they do right after the season. South Beach, out in Vegas, wherever, Caribbean island, Mexico. Yet the NBA is the news of the day. I mean, for the last couple of days, really, from the Dwight Howard situation to now this Steve Nash trade. The NBA is on the tip of everybody's tongue. It just struck me as odd because, I'm an NBA fan. Big NBA fan. I'm also, obviously, in the business of sports news. And the news cycle of the NBA is something that's interesting and curious. When the NBA regular season starts, the NFL, for example, when their regular season is starting, the couple of weeks before the season is starting, the last couple of weeks of training camp, and the first couple of weeks of the season, it is it, man. The NFL is the number one thing, leads every sports news story. Really, trumps baseball, even though baseball is in the playoff run at that time, September playoffs. Baseball's not at the top of the news again once football starts until the actual World Series. The baseball playoffs people don't care about compared to the NFL regular season that's going on at that time. The NBA, the beginning of their regular season, completely opposite. Really comes with a whimper. A lot of people don't even notice, in SportsCenter, they sort of start showing highlights of the NBA preseason games, and people say, NBA starting already? A lot of people don't even notice when those preseason highlights just sort of turn into regular season highlights. Even as the NBA season progresses, because it's going on at the same time as football season, it's really on the back burner, even after NFL football season ends. After the Super Bowl. Think the month of March. College basketball, March Madness becomes a bigger deal in the NBA. Even when the NBA playoffs start, you hear so many people say, oh, the NBA playoffs, the last 3 months, they go on and on, The NBA really does not become the primary topic of conversation until right about, the conference finals. Eastern, Western Conference Finals. For about a month and a half there, 2 months, between the start of the conference finals into the NBA finals and this period we're in right now, the start of NBA free agency. And maybe it's because right now there's not much else going on in sports. For the dog days of baseball, middle of their season, right around the All-Star break. Golf and tennis going strong, but those are still niche sports to a lot of Americans. I like golf and tennis. We'll actually get to some golf and tennis here in the next segment. But NBA free agency, maybe it has a lot to do with there not being much going on right now. Maybe it has a lot to do with NBA free agency is more fun than free agency in any other sport because teams, rosters can be so drastically changed and remade from one year to the next. Look at the Brooklyn Nets. An absolute doormat last year, and now they're looking at going into a season where Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, Brooke Lopez, and Gerald Wallace are 4 of their starters. Folks, there's only 5 guys on the floor. That's the start of a pretty doggone good team right there. And you never know. The possibility still exists. They acquired Dwight Howard. The NBA, because there are only 5 players on the court at any time for any given team, 1 or 2 guys can drastically affect the game. So free agency, can have tremendous impacts, But it just strikes me as funny. We're talking so much more about the NBA right now in the beginning of its offseason than we do in April when we're, getting ready for the NBA playoffs in March. Certainly during the NBA regular season in November, December, but I do have a couple of thoughts on the Steve Nash trade. We'll also get to a couple of different items of NFL news, some NFL rule changes, one in particular that I think could cause an interesting game day scene from time to time. Also get to some Wimbledon, maybe some PGA Tour golf. Do have to take a quick break first, though. 794-9001, the number if you'd like to get in on the other side. I'm John Arnett, and this is the Social Gambler Radio Hour. Welcome back to the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnett. Good to have you with us today. 794-9001. The number if you'd like to join the program, 794-9001. We are brought to you by thesocialgambler.com, your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. Social Gambler is also an app for your smartphone, a free app, so be sure to check them out. Loads of fresh content updated daily. Plenty of stuff today. We spoke in the last segment about the Lakers' acquisition of Phoenix Suns point guard Steve Nash. They have something on that in the Social Gambler and on the effect that's had on the NBA futures odds. Of course, books out in Vegas and around the world are already taking bets on who's going to win next year's NBA championship. And the Lakers went from 12-1 or 13-1, I believe it was. They're now 8-1 to win the title next year. Tied for third shortest odds with the Chicago Bulls. Heat the favorite at 9-4, so just better than 2-1 on your money for the Miami Heat. Followed by the Oklahoma City Thunder at 11-4. Not quite 3-1 on your money. Followed by the Bulls and now the Lakers at 8-1. Plenty of other stuff on the Social Gambler. They have European sports as well. They do have a lot of European contributors. Some rugby up there today, plenty of soccer news, Wimbledon breakdown and picks, gambling technology news. Check it all out on thesocialgambler.com. And as we talked about in the last segment, now video podcasts of this radio show. Scary as that may be. Maybe I should start wearing makeup to reduce the glare. What do you think, Pete? Pete says if I start wearing makeup, he's going to start. If I start wearing makeup, he's going to stop coming.
Nothing's going to cover up the chin, though, John.
No, yeah, it's the double chin. It's because I'm looking down, and the camera is getting me from that angle.
I'm telling you, you got to take my approach on this stuff, man. Do the beard, cut it to the fake jawline there, and then you can't see the double chin. You can't see that I have a double chin.
That's true. The beard, I haven't gone beard. I went for a few months last year, mustache. Yes, sir. Took the full step into mustache. My wife didn't like it. What I did, I went.
Did you drive a pedophile van?
Listen. I went stash, soul patch, right?
No,
I did the stash, soul patch, the Old West look. And I did it, for a good reason. I started doing it for a good reason. Buddy of mine's bachelor party or whatever. Everybody grew a mustache.
I thought you were going to say for cancer research or something. That's a good reason to grow a mustache if you're going to have a
I guess so. In my world, I guess Buddy's bachelor party was a good reason enough or whatever. And also, my wife was pregnant at the time, so I thought, well, she was looking different, let's say, every day. And so I thought, at this point, if it ever doesn't matter, it doesn't matter now, right? But yeah, quick story. You say that about the pedophile. This is true. I was standing in a bar in Key West, Florida, with that mustache, and I had a strange girl approach me. Usually, when strange girls approach you, I guess in that scenario, you might think it's a good thing, even though married man, not a good thing for me at the time, But strange girl approached me. She looked at me, and all she said is, "I just want you to know you have the creepiest looking facial hair I've ever seen." That's a true story. You have the creepiest looking facial hair I've ever seen. Thank you very much. And then these same girls, you hear them all say to their girlfriends or whoever, you hear them say in magazines, no guys ever approach me. No guys ever approach me.
Well, when you're coming up to dudes and calling them creepy,
exactly,
then,
exactly. She was
That's bad.
little bit of a wide load herself. Of course, I'm too classy to let something like that slip most times.
Did you cut it the next day?
No, I didn't cut it the next day. That just spurred me on. Something like that, really.
That just made. I'm gonna look like more of a creeper. I'm just gonna look like more.
I didn't look like a
I'm
creep.
Grow this thing out.
I don't believe I
I'm
look
gonna
like a creep.
a Chinese monk creep when this
All
thing
right,
gets
you're making
really
me
long.
mad. It's coming back. If you keep on at me, it's coming back. Anyway, plenty of things to talk about today other than facial hair. Plenty of sports news. 794-9001. If you'd like to get in, touched on the Steve Nash trade in the last segment. And while it does improve the Lakers, especially offensively, since Kobe Bryant's been there, they've never had a point guard who's really a facilitator. Derek Fisher, a spot-up shooter, decent defender in his younger days, just too slow in his later days. And Ramon Sessions, the water was clearly too deep for him in the playoffs this year. Did not look like the same player as he did in the regular season. Is probably a backup on a championship-worthy team. And he will be moving on. He declined his player option. The Lakers not going to offer him a long-term contract, so Sessions will be going somewhere else. However, Steve Nash cannot defend. So to help the Lakers on offense, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this is going to work. Just rattling it off, the starting lineup of Nash, Kobe Bryant, Metta World Peace, the artist formerly known as Ron Artest, Andrew Bynum, and Pau Gasol, that sounds good on paper, but two things will have to happen. One, they're going to have to find some way to compensate for Steve Nash getting beat off the dribble every play by guys like Russell Westbrook and Rajon Rondo. If they would advance that far, and would see a team like that in the finals. The other thing is they're going to have to change the way they do things offensively. Mike Brown, they're not an up and down team that plays a lot in transition. Pau Gasol and Bynum are traditional post guys. They like it on the low block, even though Gasol was moved to sort of the high post at times this year, and he had problems with that. For Nash to be at his best, they've really got to let him operate, got to let him do his thing. Space the floor. Kobe Bryant can't dominate the ball anymore. And are they going to do these type of things? Maybe. We'll see. Not sure this makes them better in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, if Dwight Howard comes, and that could happen because Howard wants to go to the Nets. Apparently the Magic are more interested in dealing with the Lakers because the Magic want Andrew Bynum. See, Andrew Bynum might not be Dwight Howard, but he's the closest thing there is in the NBA to Dwight Howard physically. He has the ability to dominate like Howard. Bynum had 30 rebounds in a game this past year against San Antonio Spurs. Scored over 30 points multiple times in his career. This is a guy who, not as consistent as you would like in terms of effort, but he has the ability to dominate. So if you put Dwight Howard in there, now we might be talking a team that can compete with OKC for the West. We shall see. Well, all the talk has been about the Lakers today. What effect is this going to have on the Lakers? Are they a championship team now? What about the Phoenix Suns? How would you like to be a fan of the Phoenix Suns today? The Phoenix Suns gave away. Steve Nash, not only was he their best player, multiple MVP, multiple winner of the MVP award. He was the face of their franchise, and not only all that stuff, he made the Suns exciting. The Suns, if nothing else, listen, these last couple of years, since Amari Stoudemire left, they haven't been truly competitive in terms of competing for a championship. They've been, a borderline playoff team, but they've still been fun to watch. If you haven't watched the Phoenix Suns in the last 2 years, under Mike D'Antoni, and even since Mike D'Antoni left under Alvin Gentry, a fun team to watch play. They get up and down, they're unselfish, they score a lot of points, all led by Steve Nash, who is just a genius in the open floor, really efficient, a double-double every night, one of the best shooting point guards in terms of percentages in NBA history. Well, they're not going to be fun anymore. The thrill is gone now. And I know people say, well, you have to rebuild and start over. Really? Do you have to rebuild to this degree? And if you don't know what I mean, let me tell you what I mean. Grant Hill's no longer under contract for Phoenix. There's a rumor the Lakers are trying to sign him as well. Steve Nash, now gone. Let me read you the Phoenix Suns roster. And this is after 2 acquisitions today. Phoenix acquired 2 players today in separate deals. Michael Beasley, small forward who spent time in Minnesota, Miami. There's another guy, speaking of Andrew Bynum, is a guy who, if he would put forth full effort more times, has a very high ceiling. A lot of people thought he was going to be Kevin Durant-like coming out of college. Also signed Goran Dragic, who played last season in Houston, filling in after Kyle Lowry got hurt. And Dragic developed into a nice NBA player, spent time with Memphis, and I thought he was also with Phoenix for a time. Maybe not, but anyway, he's definitely in Phoenix now. So after they acquired these 2 guys, they now have 10 guys under contract. I'm talking about the Phoenix Suns. Here is their roster. Michael Beasley, Goran Dragic, Josh Childress, Jared Dudley, Channing Frye, Marcin Gortat, Kendall Marshall, Markieff Morris, Sebastian Telfair, Hakeem Warwick. The end. If you were waiting for me to name an all-star, you're still waiting. No all-stars on that roster. Where is the excitement? How do you expect people to buy tickets to that? So while all the talk's about the Lakers today, Phoenix Suns fans, tough time to be a Phoenix Sun fan. Now, what are you going to do? What's the plan? You're obviously not going to use one of these first-round picks you got in this Nash trade to get a superstar. You're going to be picking in the mid to late 20s. You'd be lucky to find a productive player at that point in the draft. Well, I'd be interested to know what is the plan here in Phoenix moving forward. Sure looks like the plan is to be bad for the foreseeable future. Anyway, going to move on now. Significant, I think sort of significant, change to the NFL game day experience was announced today. Starting next year, in every NFL stadium, so that means, here in Jacksonville, every NFL stadium, when the lead official goes to view a play on instant replay, of course we have instant replay, as you all know, in the NFL now. It's used a few times a game. Rarely, if ever, does a game go by anymore in the NFL where it's not used at least once. Well, you've seen the head official jog off to the sideline, get under the hood there, watch the various replays, who knows what he's watching on the television, come out and make his decision. It's not like college football where they let a booth official decide it. On the NFL, the guy who sticks his head under that curtain and takes a look at the replay, he's the guy who comes out and decides what the call is. Well, now, starting this year, video boards, the large video boards in every NFL stadium, are going to show the same thing that head official is seeing at the same time he's seeing it. So it's like being under the hood. So if that head official is looking at it at a certain angle, the same time he's under that hood looking at it, you'll be seeing exactly what he's seeing up on the stadium video board. So if he wants to see an angle a couple of times, you're going to see that angle a couple of times. Now, to me, this is going to lead to a few things. This is really going to lead to some disagreements about calls. Because so many things, even when they're caught on instant replay, it's just so hairline. Think when someone's tiptoeing a sideline. Sometimes you can't quite tell, even with stop motion cameras. he can't quite tell if his foot grazed the sideline or not. Well, now everybody, there won't be any more that, well, who knows what the official was looking at. No, now you're going to know exactly what he was looking at. The other thing is, could this affect the official's opinion? Obviously, whatever home stadium you're in, we've all been in that home stadium where we see instant replay. Say a fumble is called, and we wait for the replay, we see the replay, and as soon as we see, say, that runner's knee hit the ground so we know it wasn't a fumble, if that's your team that didn't fumble, the stadium erupts. So no doubt the official will be seeing things, and since he knows the stadium's seeing it at the same time, when he sees a certain angle and he hears everybody go crazy, will that put more pressure on him to make the crowd happy? So, the NFL is the ones who decided to implement this, and through their spokesman, they're saying it's a way to improve the fan experience. And I think that's good, and I think that's important for the NFL to do. Because football, I was talking with somebody about it last night. Baseball is a sport that is better to watch live. I don't think you'll find many people who disagree with that. Who disagree with that. Hardcore baseball fans, people who are wishy-washy on baseball, everyone generally agrees that a baseball game in person is better than a baseball game on TV. A football game, there's a lot of debate about that. A lot of people think not only is it better to sit at home in your recliner in that 72 degree weather, but a lot of people think you can't actually see the action as well in person, especially if you don't have great seats. Running the ball, I think that's especially true. On TV, a lot of times you can tell if a guy gains 3-4 yards. If you're sitting in the corner of the end zone at a football stadium, you see a guy running to the line of scrimmage, you have to look at the video scoreboard to see what are they going to put, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, how many yards did he gain? So some aspects of watching football are a little tougher at the stadium. So I think it's good that the NFL is thinking about that, addressing that, thinking about the fan experience. Think about what it's going to be like when sports gambling is legalized fully in this country, which will happen fairly soon. You've probably heard New Jersey is going to proceed this year with allowing sports betting. They're ignoring a federal law against it. Chris Christie, their governor, basically said, try and stop us. So we'll see if the NFL or the federal government, who are believed to be the two entities that really oppose legal sports betting, we'll see if they try to stop it. But once sports betting is legal, and things can happen like goes on in those European soccer games where fans can have tablets or whatever in their hands and literally bet live on what they're seeing, play by play. Is he going to get first down or isn't he? The lines that'll adjust live as the game goes on. It's going to change the experience entirely. We might still be 5, 10, 15 years away from that. But it's already happening in Europe. I mean, that happens. People love that. It's a potential cash cow. Believe me. The powers that be will not turn their back on that money forever. That will happen in our lifetime. Now, we do have to go to a quick break now. Got some more NFL news, couple little NFL nuggets I want to touch on when we get back. We'll also talk a little Wimbledon tennis. 794-9001. The number if you'd like to get in here. I'm John Arnett. This is the Social Gambler Radio Hour. Welcome back to the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnett. Good to have you with us today on a Thursday afternoon. Maybe you're on your way home from work. Wherever you are, good to have you with us. If you're not listening to us on ESPN 1420 St. Augustine, we can also be heard via the Listen Live link on thesocialgambler.com or the Listen Live link on 1420sports.com. And hey, we can be heard anywhere in the world on the TuneIn radio app. So be sure to check us out. No excuse for missing the program. Now, if you'd like to join the program today, 794-9001 is how you do that. 794-9001. Quiet phone lines today. Of course, that's okay. This is not a caller-driven show, as you know. But if you'd like to chime in anything, your calls are certainly always welcome. 794-9001. We are brought to you by thesocialgambler.com, your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. Went through some of the fresh content on the Social Gambler in the last segment. They do have fresh content updated daily. Everything is completely free, and they're an app for your smartphone, so be sure to check them out. thesocialgambler.com. Folks, I've told you before, here in Northeast Florida, you can get your free advice from thesocialgambler.com. But the only place you can legally take advantage of that advice, the only legal sports book here in Northeast Florida is at the Jacks Are Better Casino, the casino ship that now sails 9 times weekly, Wednesday through Sunday out of Mayport. If you haven't been out there to the Jacks Are Better, what are you waiting on? Full Vegas action. They have a non-smoking deck, a smoking deck, and the outdoor area up top where you can enjoy the ocean breeze and maybe a drink. They have a bar up there. Once again, a sports book, craps, roulette, blackjack, slots, baccarat. I know I'm missing something because I always do. Roulette. Pay them a visit out there at the Jacks Are Better Casino, and when you do, be sure to mention this radio show, the Social Gambler Radio Hour, for $10 free play. That's right, just for mentioning this radio show, the Social Gambler Radio Hour, when you go to the Jacks Are Better Casino, they will give you $10 that you can use same as cash anywhere in the casino. Where else will they basically give you money just for uttering a few words? Not many places. Hey, one thing you can bet on out there at the Jacks Are Better, I know football drives much of their sportsbook traffic out there. But if you want to bet on Wimbledon tennis, odds are available out there. We're down to the Final Four in the men's. The semifinal match is going to happen tomorrow. Women's semifinals went on today. Serena Williams beating 2-seed Victoria Azarenka in straight sets. She'll face 3-seed Agnieszka Radwanska. In the men's draw, semifinals down to Andy Murray and Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, 4 and 5 seed there, and Djokovic and Federer matching up in the other semifinal. In terms of odds, Djokovic a heavy favorite, minus 270, meaning you have to risk $270 to win 100 if you want to back Novak Djokovic tomorrow. Roger Federer can be had at plus 200, 2-1 on your money. Federer, didn't he beat Djokovic in that epic match at Wimbledon last year? Believe he did. Pete's giving me a puzzled look. He's obviously not sure. Believe Federer that was at Wimbledon last year. Maybe he beat him at the French too. Maybe it was both. Anyway, Federer's had some success against Djokovic throughout his career. 2-1, not bad odds for Roger Federer winning a tennis match. The other semifinal, Andy Murray, a fairly substantial favorite, minus 240. Jo-Wilfried Tsonga can be had at plus 180, almost 2-1 on your money. Risk 100 to win 180. A lot of pressure on Murray. Would be the first guy from Great Britain to win Wimbledon in a long time. Decades. I should probably know off the top of my head when the last British winner of Wimbledon was. Even though I know Murray is Scottish, I believe Scottish people are still considered British, right? British but not English. I believe, because they're part of the United Kingdom. I think that's right. I'm sure probably somebody's saying right now, you idiot, Scottish people are not British. Anyway, in news that people in this area are probably interested in, on the cover of the TU Sports page this morning, Jacksonville Jaguars have restarted talks with kicker Josh Scobie. Scobie went public last week with his displeasure with the organization for how they're handling his contract situation. Apparently, the Jags wouldn't even talk to Scobie or his agent for months. July 16th is a deadline if they want to get Scobie signed to a long-term contract. After that, he'll be forced to sign his franchise tender if he wants to play this year. For those of you who don't know, the franchise players, in Scobie's case, being a kicker, he would make $2.88 million this next season, but it will only be a one-year deal. So no long-term security. No doubt Scobie wants more money than that, first of all. And, hey, a little more security, a long-term deal. And he should get it. I mean, this guy has been one of the best players on a terrible team for the last couple of years. One of the best kickers in the league. And to put it in perspective, give you an example, the top two kickers in the league is, in terms of pay, Sebastian Janikowski for the Oakland Raiders is making $4 million a year. Signed a 4-year deal a couple of years ago. And Cleveland signed their kicker Phil Dawson to a 4-year deal worth $3.81 million a year. Now the next level of kickers, and I'm sure Scobie, I mean, maybe he's not asking for top shelf money for Janikowski, Phil Dawson money, but you know he wants at least as much money as Connor Barth, Tampa Bay's kicker, and Matt Prater, the kicker for the Denver Broncos. Both of those guys were just signed to 4-year deals worth $13 million for Barth. Correct that. $13.3 million for Barth, $13 million for Prater. So each of those guys are making more than $3 million a year, both on 4-year deals, and Josh Scobie is staring right down the barrel of 1 year for less than $3 million. And I'm sure he's throwing up his hand saying, what gives here? We got a new owner who's pledged to spend to the salary cap. We've brought in all kinds of guys, and we're paying a guy like Laurent Robinson $6 million a year. He's played on about 5 NFL teams. He's been a 3 wide receiver for all of them, a 3 or a 4 for some teams. Meanwhile, Josh Scobie has spent his entire career with this franchise. Why are they not taking care of their own guys? And I'll lump Maurice Jones-Drew into that too because of his contract situation. I feel the same way there. Why are the Jaguars not paying these guys? Maurice Jones-Drew grossly underpaid. Pay the man. I don't care that he's got 2 years left on his deal. The deal's no good. You're underpaying him. Believe me, if Jones-Drew had torn up his knee a couple of years ago, right after he signed the deal and was no longer the player he once was, the Jags would think nothing of cutting him, and they wouldn't owe him the last 2 years on the deal. So, hey, I see where Maurice Jones-Drew's coming from. I see where Scobie's coming from. Hopefully, for the sake of my fellow Jaguar fans, they can get this thing done with Josh Scobie. Start taking care of the guys who've been here. Throwing around that cash for the Aaron Rosses and Laurent Robinsons of the world is fine. Make sure to keep the Maurice Jones-Drews and Josh Scobies of the world happy. And I know Scobie's just a kicker. I know that. But if we're going to live in a world where a punter is worth a 3rd-round draft pick, which is obviously what Gene Smith did in this past draft, spending a 3rd-round pick on punter Brian Anger, if we're going to live in that world, then a kicker who is immeasurably more important than a punter, folks, I got news for you. A kicker is more important than a punter. Kickers actually decide the outcome of games. They score points. Punters do not. So if a punter's worth a 3rd-round draft pick, a kicker like Josh Scobie is certainly worth something. Let's get this done, Gene Smith. Anyway, I've mentioned Wimbledon already. Semifinals tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Andy Murray and Tsonga, Djokovic and Roger Federer. The golf, the Greenbrier Classic going on today, PGA Tour. Vijay Singh out to an early lead, shot 7 under today. That's 63 out at Greenbrier. I'd like to play golf out there. You know, never been out there, never been to the Greenbrier, heard good things. One of these days, I'm sure I'll make it that way. But Vijay, you know, he's been quiet now for, you know, I thought Vijay was done. I mean, I know he had a renaissance there in his mid-40s, but, or renaissance is probably not saying it right. Vijay played his best golf in his mid-40s. Golf is unique in that it's one of the only sports where you can get better, you can get worse. And age does not necessarily have that much to do with it. Vijay Singh, much better player. He was a much better player at age 42 than he was age 29, by any measure. It's not like that in every sport. You take Wimbledon, for example. Take tennis. Take Roger Federer, for an example. Federer is a substantial underdog to Novak Djokovic. Djokovic is minus 270. You have to risk 270 to win 100 if you want to bet on Djokovic. Okay, if Federer loses, if he gets beaten handily by Djokovic, I mean, he's done. I mean, he's not done. Federer will still play tennis for a couple of years, but he'll never again be beating guys like Djokovic and the next big thing, the next guy to come behind Djokovic. Because in tennis, once you get to a certain point in age, and that age is around 30, for some players it happens sooner, you hit a certain physical wall. I mean, it's a young man's game. You're not coming back from that. You're done. Federer's only hope to win a Grand Slam, if he can't win this one or one real soon, is going to be for all of the top seeds to lose. You know, Nadal to lose, Djokovic to lose, a guy like Murray to lose, whoever is going to be the next young big thing. Golf's not that way. You can endure a huge slump in your late 20s, early 30s. You can play the best golf of your career in your 40s. Vijay Singh's a perfect example. Played the best golf in his career, no doubt about it, in his early 40s. Now he's approaching 50 and goes out there today and waxes Tiger Woods. Beats him by 8 shots. Could have said on the first tee today, I'll spot you 7 shots, Tiger Woods, and Vijay would have still won the bet. I mean, that's golf. Different than any other sport. And look at the guy who's right behind right behind Vijay at 6 under. Jeff Maggart. Talk about a name from the past. Tiger at 1 over, 8 back. We're out of time now. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Social Gambler Radio Hour.